Phoebe and Brant have both shown that they're able to excel in multiple different character archetypes, and their kit design got me thinking about previous characters that share this quality, aka what I'm going to call hybrid characters. And they made me think, okay, so how good are hybrid characters actually, and why do they work, or why do they not? So that's what I'm going to be discussing in today's video. So now, I would first like to discuss what actually is a hybrid character. Well, there's plenty of ways you can actually define hybrid, for example the Pridwin definition, but I'm going to define it as something else. So the way I see a hybrid character is that they are a character that are able to perform multiple roles, and the roles I see are main DPS, sub DPS, and support. So main DPS is someone who does majority of the team's damage like Carlotta, a sub DPS is a character that has strong damage but also has buffing utility like Zhezhe, and then a support is a character who is entirely focused on buffing your teammates, such as Shorekeeper. So first we have to look at some of the hybrid characters currently in the game, and there are 3 main examples of this, but I will not be discussing one of them, being Alto. This is because Alto is very clearly designed to be a sub DPS, it's just that he's not really that good at his job, so he ends up failing. So the 2 characters that are currently in the game that I will talk about as a hybrid character are Changli and Jianxin. Starting with Jianxin. So Jianxin is supposed to be a DPS, sub DPS, and shielder hybrid. Her supportive qualities come from the fact that she has one of the better grouping abilities in the game. It's worse than Rochia, but it is better than Yang Yang. This is an inherently supportive quality, unless your name is Jian, then you decided that what if it was my offense as well. And through her Forte Circuit's heavy attack, she is also able to shield your entire team, which is actually pretty nice for some defensive utility. We love to see it. Then for her sub DPSing capability, she actually does have a pretty decent amount of damage per rotation. Not really as good as that of Zhezhe or Yinlin or even Rochia, but it is passable. And she also focuses on the sub DPS role through her Ultra skill, granting 38% damage amplification to Resonance Liberations. This is a quality that tends to be unique to the sub DPS characters, giving a large damage amplification buff to one specific damage type for 14 or 10 seconds that will be cancelled when you swap out. This is also seen in characters like Yinlin or Zhezhe, so this is just a trait unique to sub DPSs. And then for her main DPSing capability, while it is technically possible in a team of Mortefi and Jianxin and Shorekeeper, I don't think it's that good at all. So that's where the main flaw with Jianxin lies. She doesn't really do any of these tasks particularly well. She's not a great shielder, and not a great sub DPS either due to her long field time. And she's not a great damage dealer due to her subpar damage output. So she fails as a hybrid character because she doesn't particularly excel in one specific role. There's nothing that she does that really makes me go, yeah, this is a great character. Not even for one specific team or anything. Jianxin just has no identity. Moving on to Changli, and the roles I think Changli takes up best are main DPS and sub DPS, as she doesn't really have any supportive qualities within her kit outside of her Ultra skill, which I've already gone over, focuses more on sub DPSing. So as a main DPS, Changli isn't really that strong. This is because her numbers are overall quite low if you use her in a hyper carry setting, even if you have a character like Zhezhe who should theoretically have really good buffs for her. And as a sub DPS, Changli's rotation is pretty long, and there's not a single character that would prefer running Changli specifically because of the buffing. Every single time that Changli is ran in a team, it's a quick swap dual carry team. So while Changli does technically fail at being a main DPS and a sub DPS, she doesn't fail at being both at the same time. So this means that Changli is a success at a hybrid character. So what's the difference between Changli and Jianxin here? Well, simple. One of them has at least an attribute that makes them shine and makes them work really well in a specific type of team, whereas the other one lacks that focus or specific quality, because Changli and her swap cancels make her really good for dual carry team compositions with other characters like Sheng Liao, whereas Jianxin often gets left to be an Originite bot to proc Rejuvenating Glow. This leads us to Phoebe and Brant and the way their kits are designed, starting with Phoebe. And I think Phoebe handles the existence of a hybrid character in a pretty boring way. Phoebe needs you to choose which role you go into due to the existence of her Absolution and her Confession modes. Kuro Games looked at you and said, you are choosing. You cannot get both at the same time. So you have to pick, do I want to run Phoebe as a hyper carry or do I want to run her as a sub DPS? You can't run both. And while that in and of itself isn't particularly wrong, the issue I have with this is the way that they go around it is pretty lazy. It's not like there is a specific incentive to focus on one of her roles, or maybe even a sort of downside on trying to multitask. No, you just don't even get the option. You have to choose Absolution or Confession. You cannot do both. And I think that is pretty boring game design, as it goes against rotation creativity. Think about it this way. What if instead of being limited to a 24-second timer, we instead had the ability to choose between Spectrofrazzle or damage in some other way? Because if you were to do that, we would have the ability to both get the increased damage and not need Spectral Over to apply Spectrofrazzle for a Hypercarry Phoebe team. But it still would not be broken, because you still wouldn't be able to buff all of your enhanced heavy attacks, because you would need to have some heavy attacks that are dedicated to applying Spectrofrazzle. So it's still balanced. And this way, the rotation crafters would have the ability to find a more optimal rotation than just either choosing between one or the other. Simply put, making it so that we have to choose one or the other is just not creative. But my qualms with her from a game design standpoint aside, she does effectively balance the two roles, because both of her modes are very powerful. So it's not like the one of them might as well not exist. Well, at least Confession will be good when we get a Spectrofrazzle focused DPS, but that's a story for another time, maybe when Zani comes out. So overall, as a hybrid character, she does have a good design, although it is quite lazy. Moving on to Brant, however. Brant's hybrid roles are between a support and a sub DPS, but he also has a little bit of main DPS in him. So much like Jianxin, he is balancing a lot of roles at the same time. But unlike Jianxin, he doesn't fall into the same pitfalls. So while he does have a pretty long Concerto rotation, and his buffs are even more niche than those of Jianxin, he kinda makes up for it in one very simple way. He does damage. And his damage is actually good. His damage can compete with that of Changli, which I've already discussed is a very strong dual carry unit. Now, while there is still some unclarity about Brant's rotation, because video showcases are really hard to decipher at times, we are still not fully aware of what his damage potential within these teams are. But based on the info that we do have, Brant's damage output is more than enough to justify putting him into a team. But it's not enough to make him fit into just any team. You do need a proper justification for adding Brant into whatever team you want to run, because just putting Brant in there for the sake of putting Brant in there isn't going to work out well for you. For example, if you want to run Brant with Jinxi, you can justify it by saying that Brant's Ultra skill is capable of buffing most of Jinxi's damage due to her being a skill-based character, although you would need to find coordinated attacks from a different source. Or for example with Carlotta, you can use the same arguments as you would with Changli Carlotta, while also getting the bonus of if you time your Ultra skill correctly, you can give the skill damage buffing to Carlotta's ultimate, which will be a pretty effective combo and a big DPS increase over just using Changli Carlotta. And then there is his healing. While it's not very impressive, it is still good enough to where you can very much notice it happening within your rotation, especially when combined with his shield as well. So overall, Brant is a very good success as a hybrid character, because there is a very clear advantage to putting Brant in your team as opposed to not putting Brant in your team. His kit is kind of just like a Changli, but what if there was also a heal and a shield on the side? And I already called Changli a successful hybrid character, so it would be hypocritical for me to say Brant is not one. But what do you think about hybrid characters? And do you think they're going to be innovated upon more in the future? If so, what are your ideas for potential hybrid characters coming soon? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions to ask me, be sure to do so in my Discord server. I'm pretty active in there. And if you just want to hear my random thoughts and ramblings on stuff, be sure to follow me on Twitter. Both my Discord and Twitter are linked in the description. But that'll be it from me. Peace.